Welcome back to another episode on Oak and Rock Fatherhood. I am your host, Zachary Small, joined by Anthony Migliorino. And today we have a special guest, that is Steve Mayeda. Steve, how you doing, brother?
Hey, what's happening, guys?
Not too much. It's great to see you. So Steve is a photographer, a videographer, recording content for Philosophy of Man on YouTube. He's the founder of thesexuallife.com. He's the creator, and correct me if I'm wrong, the creator of Men's Development of Excellence and the Rising Man Group. Those are two separate groups or the same group, Steve?
Yeah, there's separate groups. There's separate tiers within the company of Austin Men's Development. There's so many different things.
Hey, we're going to be diving into all of it. I'm looking forward to it. But on top of all of that, and very important to this discussion, Steve is a father of four. So Steve, welcome to Oak and Rock Fatherhood. Very happy to have you. You know, I've been looking forward to this discussion since our last one that we did live at the Conference of Masculine Excellence. It's great to see you, man. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey, great to be here. Great to talk to you guys again, and I wish I talked to you guys more because that was one of the coolest things about that convention. Which, and then also, you know, like some men make excuses or like, you know, how do you be a good dad? How do you be a good dad? How do you take the high road as dad? How do you do the right thing? All these different things, right? And they use like politics or feminism or their ex who screwed them over as excuses to not do that. And I get it. Those things are all problems and they're big problems for men, but that should never be an excuse for you to, you know, drop the balls being a good father. But then it's like, well, how do you hold the ball? Well, that's really hard. You need to stand with other guys. So when I saw you guys, and then also the association with just a lot of people who use that excuse, like, you guys weren't doing that. And it was just really cool. And I was like, oh man, I want to talk to these guys more. So it's always like really, really good to talk to both you guys. And I wish I did it more. You know, I guess with busy dudes, the only way to bond is to be like busy together. Yeah. So this is really how we talk. Yeah.
Yeah. That conference was crazy to me, right? That was the first time I did anything like that. Zac kind of pushed me into it. And then to see him speak on stage and then sitting down with you, you interviewing me. And I was like, man, this is what I needed to do. This is why I'm here. Right. I grew every minute of that week, right? Everybody I talked to, speaking with you for an hour, expanded my whole mindset greatly on sharing this message, helping fathers, right? How do we bring this message better? How do we make it more clear? How do we help dads? And how do we promote fatherhood? And especially in a time where I wouldn't say it's frowned upon, but there's not enough conversations around it, right? We're not supporting families and strong men leading their families. So it was, like you said, man, it was a really good experience to sit down with you and then to see the guys that I came with on stage just destroying it.
Yeah, cool.
All right. So, me and Zac were talking, and a few things we wanted to speak to you and get your perspective, because the goal is to help fathers here. It's Oak and Rock Fatherhood. And we know that you've been working for over 15 years, helping men, with personal development. And what is one of the things that you see most often that men struggle with that maybe stop them from becoming good fathers or just becoming good men in general? Is there one common thing?
I mean, I think there's a lot to it, but the lack of identity, but everybody jumps on that, right? So now we have the reaction to the lack of identity. So when we have a lack of identity in, what it means to be a man, then there's this rebellion of how to be a man. So everybody's like desperately trying to go into how to be a man. And I think that they do some naive things. But evolution also comes from that too, kind of like what you guys are talking about with peaceful fatherhood, which was like so interesting to me. I mean, that to me, it's really cool that that's a movement, because for that first off, I mean, that may not be unique. I mean, obviously people have said that before, but to come out of a very reactionary men's movement, that's really important to see. I mean, that's really unique. I think you guys should really credit yourselves with that, because that's what was so interesting to me about interviewing you guys, because it was like, oh man, there's guys that say this and live it and then coach people on living it. That's you know, expecting it to come out of a lot of like some very, you know, like red pilly stuff that I wasn't, you know, you get a lot of the red pill, which is like men need to have power, and power is so important, and we're disempowered, and we're going to have power in all these ways and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, an immature man goes like, yeah, power, you know, let's kick ass. And, you know, all boys or whatever are pussified. And it's very easy to get carried away with that. I mean, the immature guys just go nuts with it. So then to see people that have actually, you know, before there was a reactionary men's movement, you know, guys were already like leading this and coaching it. And that's very cool. So I think when guys come to me, there's a lack of identity, but then there's this other problem of reaching for an identity and not knowing where to look. And there's a lot of bad places that I think that they can look when it comes to that sort of thing. Man, you know, when you feel lost, you feel desperate. When you feel lost and desperate, you reach for whatever's going to make you feel good. And sadly, our society, I think, sells us on a lot of things that make us feel good. And so I think it's the answer to that is like, man, you got to talk to people where they're at. You got to, that's the talent, I guess, of coaching, is you have to be able to really communicate with these guys and have them understand that you know where they're at, but then also show them how to live in a better way and to be a father, you know, in a way that isn't necessarily violent. And here's one thing that was on my mind the last couple days, because you guys share a big message of how to be a good parent, take violence out of the home. But for me, I didn't know how to be a dad, and I didn't care. Like when I was like, that sounds really bad, but like I was 28, I didn't know, like my life was, I didn't like have any idea what I was going to do. And I didn't have the motive to be like a great, you know, father that was going to have like all the answers or anything like that. I was like, oh Jesus, man, I'm a dad. That's how I took it. And I think there's a lot of people that may walk into that situation, or whatever the situation is. But this comes up a lot also with guys who've had trouble with being a parent, and they'll try and fix those things. And I think that it's really important for men to understand that if you don't know how to be a parent, if you've been neglectful, if you've been abusive, if you've been harmful for to your children, and you want to stop and change those things, you can. Like you can stop and change those things and live differently and attempt to amend those things. And I think that message also isn't told as well. And that's really tough for guys, because I mean, I always heard this as a kid, like men carry so much guilt or so much pressure or so much on their shoulders. And I didn't realize what that meant until I was a dad. Right. And like actually an active father, like, so like, if you've done wrong, that just kills you as a man. And so the ways to correct those things are there, and you should, and you'll live better, and your kids will live better big time. So, you know, that's my 2 cents.
There are a few things there that you just connected that's really interesting in their overlap. And it's funny you say, you know, that's what you liked about us. That's what drew me to the videos. You know, like I said, I had not known of you prior to us sitting down and speaking. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And then I was like, holy crap, like, look at what this dude's doing. So I went to your content. And you're right. You know, with feminism and this big movement towards accepted and praised weakness, men reacted to that. And it was like a slingshot. And we're going to grow the beards out. We're going to show you guys it's not just hipsters. We're going to drink the whiskey. We're going to shoot the guns. We're preppers. All these exterior things. And they do all of this in reaction to that. But they don't build what's within. You know, and with us, we're reacting to this by saying, hey, you should be more peaceful in your home. Mm-hmm. That goes in the face of these things. You're saying, be the strong, you know, dominant man. You're going to react. You're going to be, you know, Chad. Become Chad. And we're like, hey, don't hit your kids. And it's how are we reacting with peace in the face of all this stuff that's overtly masculine and amplified masculinity? But then I look at your content, and you're talking about a lot. When you were talking about, I think it was true power or the alpha versus fear. There's a great video you recently dropped, and you were talking about how it's within. It's these things you do are extensions of yourself, but they can't supplicate or they can't replicate, you know, the need that's calling from within as to peace with who you are as a man.
Yeah.
If you're worried about the external, what you can't control, you know, you're going to have all this turmoil. You can have sex with all these ladies. You can have all this money and all these items of luxury. But if you're still a man who's broken inside, you know, you're going to fall apart. It's all a shit. You're putting on a show to react to them, to show them how much of a man you are without ever becoming a man. So you're doing the same thing, and that's wicked impressive.
Well, you know, I think when it comes to those things, and this, I guess, does tie into fatherhood to some degree, but a couple steps away, is when it came to the manosphere and what was before the manosphere and all that sort of stuff, I'd already done all those things, and that was just my life. And they were generally mistakes, but then I had to learn how they weren't mistakes. So like fighting and like being rambunctious and I don't know, being whatever a Chad is, or have like a ton of girlfriends, all sort of shit. Like those were things that I lived and did. And I had to figure out, like, so I really do value violence. Like, this is going to sound like really crazy, but like, it is a huge teacher of mine. And you have to be really humble with violence. And like, I can't be anymore. Like, so I've trained martial arts all my life. I can't do it the same. Like I do not have the same healing properties that I did. Like, you know, at 44 in comparison to a 24-year-old, like I cannot do the same stuff. But when it comes to violence, like I respect it, and I respect it as something that is in me. And I've done violence in ways that are, you know, like fighting or whatever, stuff like that. And I've seen people get hurt. I've gotten hurt. I've hurt people. I know what it's like to feel when you hurt somebody, which can feel good. I've also done it in like a, you know, jujitsu form or karate or MMA shit or whatever. And like, it's fun. Like, it feels good when you win. And when you lose, it's also like a really big awakening, like a really big one. When you get so hurt, you can't continue and you have to quit. So I mean, like, if we go to this, like I've broken my hand or broken my nose or had my teeth cracked or whatever, or got knocked out, or you get like liver knocked out. So you get hit in the liver and you can't function, you drop. And if you're in a like MMA fight or something like that, like you quit and a ref steps in. But if that happens to you in a street fight, like you got to ride that out. It's really like a humbling thing. And so if you're on both ends of that, you get like a full spectrum of what life is, right? I never hear anybody in the whole alpha, whatever manosphere talk about the philosophy of that, but you hear about it all throughout Japanese history. You hear about it through Native American warrior stuff. You hear the warrior talked about like stoicism in the great philosophy that comes from that. But you just kind of like get stuff pulled from the reactive sort of masculine side. So that being said, like there's a value to all these things that come out in humanity. You know, sex could be another one where there's like pros and cons. But so I guess like when I hear people promote about alphaness, like I don't really know what that is, because I know how weak I can be. I know how I can lose. I know how I can like cave at certain things. I know how I can be afraid. And, you know, you are. So what? But like I've done what all those people say is supposed to be alpha, and I got just a different result. And so I just feel like a lot of people haven't put the experience in. How that ties into fatherhood is, well, if
that was one hell of a setup.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, so if we don't tell the truth about our lives to people, and we're coming from our insecurity, and we're coming from like, I feel worthless as a man. And let me tell you, like when I got divorced, I felt worthless as a man. All right. I felt worthless, like of no value, despite my history. despite, leading lots of people or doing all the stuff, which is supposed to make you like alpha, despite, all sorts of people that I've dated or whatever sort of shit or yada, yada, I felt worthless as a man. So if I can't be honest with myself about that, then I have to lie to myself. If I have to lie to myself, then I have to put an image in front of my kids. Now, if I can be honest with myself, I feel it's best not to be honest with my kids about that in terms of my emotions and how I feel worthless as a man. I then have to go, I feel worthless as a man. I have to start there and say, how do I present to my children that I, am still here, that I know what my job is, that I know how important that role is. And I can mess up, they'll still see like I'm affected and in pain and those sorts of things. But if I start from that point where I can't be honest with myself, it's all screwed up when it gets to, how I am as a father and then how I project in society and all that sort of stuff. So you always got to start where you're at. And you also got to know, I think, like the story of like whatever badassery. And again, like I wouldn't really call myself that, but like the story of those things is like, man, if I feel afraid for my life, I feel afraid for my life. It's like my dog gets porcupine quills in his face. Like, it's like, I don't know what to do, like shit, what do I do? So it's not like there's always this confidence that comes from it. There's a whole bunch I could say about this, but do you have any other questions?
No, that's good.
Keep going.
Yeah, I would say, there's a reason why these cycles continue, right? If as men, we're not being truthful, we're not being honest with who we are, what our abilities are, and how we treat especially our kids, right? Our kids pick up on that, right? We shouldn't be flexing our power over our kids. So when we're not living honest, our kids see this, and what are they going to do, right? They're going to follow in our footsteps. They're going to mirror us, and they're going to grow up, and they're going to learn how to hide who they are, right? They're going to learn to say, hey, you know what? I saw that dad, he gets uncomfortable telling the truth. He acts a certain way, right? He says that we need to be good people, right? We need to go out into the world and we need to be happy and succeed. But in our home, he beats us, he hits us, he's yelling and screaming. So of course, not only do they live that, but they follow those examples. So when they grow up, what are they going to do? And I think as men, and I know with my journey, and I'm sure with you, and definitely can say with Zac, the more that we learn about ourselves, the more honest we are, right? That we might not know how to parent, and we are weak in that area. We need to improve, right? We need to learn, we need to educate, we need to speak to other fathers about how to be a good dad. And not only is that going to help us, but it's going to show our kids a man who lives with high value, with integrity. And that can be any weakness, like you said before about violence. There's so many men who go out into the world and they're afraid, right? They're afraid to flex on the world. They're intimidated by other men. They don't want to speak up. They let government control every aspect or element of their life. And then when they go to their house, they're demanding, they're authoritative, they're telling their kids what to do and how to live. So they have no problem abusing that power in their home on people who are the weakest and smallest. So with me and Zac, we speak a lot about peaceful parenting, being a good father, and you have to be consistent, right? You have to live with virtues in your home. You have to be honest. You have to be committed and dedicated, but also you have to not abuse your power over your children, right? You can't use violence in your home and then when you go out in the world, be a weak man. It's completely backwards of what we should be seeing.
And it's harder. Well, so there's no excuse for those things, but it's easy to see how it happens. Like our world has so much like pressure on men. So like we hear this, it's like, many men will be critical about feminism and how it like wrecks women's identity. And then they get, into certain things or whatever. And not all feminism I would say is bad. That's just my opinion or whatever. But like, obviously like people get carried away with it and misuse it, and people misuse causes all the time. And so with men in our culture, it's the same thing. We feel disempowered. We have no sense of self. We get, overworked. We're just stressed out. We have all this pressure. We come home, and then our wife, if we're married, is like, why are you so lazy? I've been working all day with these kids. You have to, and we're frustrated. And if men don't learn to handle this new form of anger that we have, which is like this frustration with self, this frustration with nothing works, this frustration with, why am I doing this? Nobody cares. My kids don't care. My spouse doesn't care. If I'm single, what's the purpose of this? She's having fun because of social media or whatever type stuff, and so there's this same sort of thing that our culture gives men this extra pressure to be angry. And yeah, man, it's very easy to take it out on your kids. And then here's the thing where I like talking to you guys, because, okay, don't yell at my kids, don't hit my kids, but then how do I not bring a bad mood into my kids' lives? How do I, like, man, I'm a man, I get pissed off, right? I get frustrated. How do I not bring that to my kids? Or here's another thing too, because I'm just like, for me personally, this is like a big one. So I work all the time. How do I not bring my work to my kids? And
it's a good
it's
question.
Funny because, yeah, you were talking about your son's birthday, and my son's birthday is coming up, and he's like, man, Dad, I always wish I got more time with you, because you're always thinking about stuff. You're always thinking about like these things with your work. You're always like out, imagining all these things. And it's like, I wonder about them, but I also want to talk to you about how I think that way and blah, blah, blah. And we're very similar in certain ways of thinking, but yeah, man, it was just like such a reality check. It's like, wow,
No, Steve, that's a great question. Yeah. And I would say I ran a business for over 2 decades, my own business. And one thing I've learned from that is I didn't get angry. I didn't get upset. I didn't get frustrated at my customers because they were paying me money, right? I learned that good business, I had to be this way. I started applying that to my family, right? And not that they had to pay me, but why was I treating my customers and my vendors and my employees better than my kids, right? Why was I so easily getting frustrated and angry at them? But when somebody was giving me money, I was giving them the best of me. So I learned a valuable lesson, right? That I was being controlled by money, by status, by finances. And I was allowing it to this dysfunction to overrule who I really was, right? As a father, as a man. And the moment that I applied those lessons to my family, right? Everybody grew. My kids got better. We got more connected. And it wasn't that I had to learn, right? You said, how do you not lash out or get angry and frustrated? I already knew it. I just had to apply it to my kids, right? I had to give them more consideration than complete fucking strangers. And the benefits were amazing.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because we see intimacy, or the people that get to see the deepest sides of ourselves. So this would have to do with, like, if you're married as well, we see that as our outlet for our shadows or our dark side or for our frustrations, rather than because we're always holding on for the public. But I think one of the main points in this brings up this dynamic. It's like, we know what the wrong answer is, but the right answer, there's very few people leading that. And that's where I think so many fathers are in the dark. So the wrong answer, don't hit your kids, or, hitting your kids is the wrong answer. So don't hit your kids. Don't yell at your kids. Okay. All right. I can do that. Here's the checklist of doing that. Okay. Maybe I can do that. Maybe I can't do that. But then how do I manage myself after that? That's really difficult, because there
what
is
I like
no
about
playbook on that.
Exactly. I was just going to say, what I like about that is there's no right guaranteed answer to this. But I will say, I came to the same conclusion from a different path as Anthony. And I saw that when I'm having a bad day, why would I treat my family less than I would treat, let's say, the two of you? or any other adult. If the three of us were roommates and we lived together and I came in, I wouldn't start screaming at you guys. I'd be like, yo, today sucked, you know, like whatever it was, you know, I'm just having a rough one. That's how I don't hide that from the kids. I want them to see that as an adult, you're going to have bad days. What I did do, and this helped me quite a bit, I learned how to control. I didn't allow myself, and I don't allow myself emotionally to get to the point where I need to punch a hole in the wall. I need to scream. I need to start slamming things to vent it out of me. I've learned much healthier channels for that, those frustrations. And a lot of it, I mean, gym time, getting alone time, going for a walk and just letting my brain sort it out. You know, so I came to that where why would I be yelling at my kids for being kids or my wife for being a woman when the issue is just me? I had a bad day and bad days happen. If I hide that from the kids, though, how do they'll think that they're a bad adult for having a bad day because my dad was perfect. No, he wasn't. He had to go through a lot of shit too, you know, and he learned how to properly channel that. And I tell my kids now, hey, yeah, it was a rough day, you know. I had to type a bunch today. I'm so frustrated. You know, it was a bad day in my end. The world's going crazy. But I talk to them and they know, like, hey, if dad's working out, the radio's up, that's my therapy. You know, but something that stands out in this too. And as you were going, it made me realize there are a lot of men who are in this sort of purposeless warrior mode. They have the body they've built, you know, but they don't have any means to bringing that to the world and being a part of something bigger. So it's almost Christmas time. We're married. You're divorced. There are a lot of divorced men out there who have to share their kids during this time, and that's hard, you know. And I was wondering how you or where you go mentally to process that, because it seems that you have found a way to channel it. It sucks sharing the kids like that. There's objectively that just sucks, but you continue through your videos and a lot of the content you put out. You have found a way to find peace with you and what you can control. And I think there are a lot of men who are still very upset that they can't control that. So it's both the divorced men, but there are a lot of single men that come up to us as well. And they're like, I want a wife, I want a family, but I can't connect. I can't find the right woman, you know, whatever it is. I don't know what my purpose is. I have a strong body. Yeah. I have the bank account, but I don't have purpose. So I'm seeing a lot of that from those two. And with the holiday season around us and winter, it seems to get worse and heavier.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not an easy answer. So I'll tell my story a little bit. And so I'll try and do it in 5 minutes, but
there's no rush, man.
I have two sets of kids. So I have my oldest sons are from a previous relationship, and that was all crazy. So like my 20s, I was nuts, man. I was like out of control. So it's a whole crazy story, but anyway, their mom and I, we had two kids together, and it was like this crazy relationship. In 2012, so there were always these like claims of abuse and all this sort of stuff. So before there was like a red pill, there wasn't a men's rights movement, right? So if we went to like 2006 and 7 or whatever, there wasn't like a you know, like that I knew of guys like kind of coming together to whatever. But I was getting all sorts of like abuse claims and sex abuse claims from her and her family and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, so in 2012, I think it was 2012. So she made a claim against me and I got arrested. So at that point, I didn't get to see those kids for 5 years. And I handled a lot of that stuff really wrong. And it was like really terrible. And I was not the best dad. Like we talk about it now, where it's real weird because we're like friends now and it's kind of crazy. But we both like totally fucked that up, because it's real obvious. Like when you guys talk about peaceful parenting, it's really important because it damages your kids more than you think. Like you can't even comprehend. You come in from a bad day at work and you get pissed off and you like throw your coffee cup or something, and your kid sees that and doesn't know how to interpret that. It changes their psychology in so many different ways. Also, I work with drug addicts all the time, and it's like really, there's actually a lot more content that I'm going to start putting out towards that. But every single like street junkie I know comes from abuse. I mean, there's always abuse, whether it's from the mom or dad, or uncles or aunts or whatever. But there's abuse. All right. So when you get to like pharmaceutical junkies, that may not be the case, but like every drug addict that that, you know, ends up like using in certain ways, they have abuse, and it's horrible, man. And it doesn't mean that if you abuse your kids that your kids are going to be drug addicts, but they're going to have some effect that you could have
highly
prevented.
more likely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
you increase the percentages a lot.
Basically, like if you see somebody that is homeless on the streets, you can almost guarantee that there was some sort of parental or maybe a teacher or whatnot, but there was some sort of abuse. So you want to take yourself out of that equation as much as possible. So then, you know, when that happens, that sucked. So from 2012 to 2017, I didn't see those kids. So in 2012, I also met another woman, and then we got married, and it was like amazing. We had 2 more kids and over the years and so on. And that was amazing. It was like really good to build a family in like a functional way and all this sort of stuff. Now, when we split up, she did what a lot of the people, this is why I've always disliked a lot of the guys in the red pill, because already in 2012, I'd been through a lot of what they complained about. And my solution in 2012, because in 2012, there was a bit of a men's movement. And they are all these, like, it was really bad, man. I mean, all these.
That's incredible. Like I started out in 2011, 2012. That's when I came across the subreddit. Right. I was in the first 100 to 1,000. I remember 1,000 subscribers to the Red Pill subreddit.
Yeah. Okay. So at that time, most of the people were these like dopey, like really like I'm like, man, I can't take you guys seriously. So I was like, fuck this. And I was already, you know, working with men constantly. Right. So I'm like, screw this. I'm just going to do my own thing. And so to sit from like 2012 to 2017 and to not have any options, like to fight the situation I was in, which like I made a lot of mistakes legally, and you can't do that as a guy, because then you get in a situation like I was in 2012 to 2017 where you can't reverse it. So when you sit with that sort of solitude, you go through the anger and you go through the pain, and it sucks and it's unfair and it's terrible. Like that's terrible. Like, and I get if you're going through a divorce and you can't see your kids, and that's really bad and that's terrible. And I don't want to minimize that at all. It's terrible. It's incomprehensible. But I've done that in really, really bad ways. And it just sucked. And it was like volatile, and it was a horrible situation. So then when my ex and I, we were splitting up, she flipped out, and she did everything that like everybody always says, right? And it's like, I knew it. I saw it happening. You know, I was like, Jesus, really, you're doing this? So one of the things that she did, and this is where it's interesting, and where I kind of want to give some perspective on the whole picture. So it's so weird for me to talk about this because I still don't know how to talk about it. I kind of refrain from it. I don't talk about it publicly too much, but like she basically tried to use the old case against me that had to do with child abuse on saying that I was abusing her and the kids that we had. And there was tons of proof that that wasn't true. And when she had told me she was going to do this, so I started recording her. Well, in Texas, you can record people. There's single party consent. Whether a judge honors it in court or not, that's different. But like the thing is so I started recording her and her talking about all this shit and how she was going to do whatever and whatever women's empowerment stuff and yada, yada, yada. So when I realized this was for real, I just basically started the whole legal process. And in that sense, you know, I want to talk about it like I walked in with this like epic confidence, but, you know, I was really terrified that like the same thing could happen. But I handled everything right legally. And now, and just working so many guys or helping, you know, so many guys with their legal cases and whatnot, I get that it's way better when you're detached from it. But when we went to court, we started out with depositions actually, and that killed it all. But at the end of that deposition, I could have charged her with like multiple criminal charges. I had the opportunity to get full custody of my kids. I had the opportunity to press her or press child abuse charges against her, get protective orders against her. And it's like all on public record. I actually have full video access to this, and it's public record. Like it could be used, like I could put it out you know, without blurring her face or any shit like that. But it was pretty bad. So I walked out of that court, and I just remember sitting there with my lawyer, and he goes, man, like, you won everything. We could get everything right now. And this is like unreal. This is like so awesome. And I was like, man, you know, when we walked into this, what did I say? You know, all I want is, I want, you know, the best possible visitation schedule. I want to have like fair child support set. And I don't want to take away, you know, her as a parent, or her being a parent. Now, if she does need to, like, if what she was doing that's considered abuse in the state of Texas, that we could have charged her with or put protective orders against her with, if she can't stop that, then yeah, we can enforce that. You know, that's what the deposition video and evidence and whatever is for. But so I walked out of that winning. I got everything I could have wanted, and I didn't take it. And so the reason why I bring that up is because, like, men who are sitting alone, and I've sat in that pain, and that pain told me I needed to destroy and kill and fuck up my ex. And if you would have asked me at that time, like, so here's the other thing too, like, don't get me wrong. Like, we walked out of that deposition, I was like, yeah, let's like destroy her life or whatever, you know, it was like, come on. But I have other people who I listen to, you know, so I run by, you know, like, I'm in duress. I can't think straight. I'm emotionally confused. You know, my vision for my entire life has been, you know, falling apart. You know, it's being taken away from me. I feel victimized. I feel all this sort of shit. So when that happened, you know, I have other people in my corner who are telling me what to do. So, you know, when I'm in that pain, I want other people to suffer, and I want to have whatever. And look, the ultimate answer is, and I know from my first two sons, is that you have to do what's best for them. And you may not be thinking straight on what's best for them. And I hate to say it, the courts actually are attempting to do what's best for the kids. They may not hear all the details and do the wrong decision or whatever, but they're really, really trying to do what's best for the kids. It's so, I don't know. I've lost legally in the worst ways. I've won in some of the best ways. And what I chose to do, and I feel was the right decision, was I let her be a mom. And 100%, you know, taking the damage of you know, like, when I got reintegrated with my kids, and for them to have been told for 5 years that I was this monster human being that, you know, was this evil man. My oldest son, he remembered me, and he was like, I didn't really believe that, but you don't know what to believe. You know, that's hard. That's so confusing. That's insane. Like, we can't even comprehend how confusing that is. So, okay, I can convince them that that I'm not a bad dude. But think about those 5 years of the decisions they made and how their brain shaped in that time. That's insane. And it sucks because their mom and I talk about this all the time. It was like it was terrible. We were just such chaotic, like, fucked up people that was the big problem with it. And if my ex decided to do some really stupid shit, because, you know, when you're emotionally charged, you do stupid shit. She did some really stupid shit when she didn't feel like comfortable or whatever in our relationship to justify whatever her behaviors were. Like, man, that doesn't mean that I need to destroy her as a human being, that I need to take her kids away from her, because if I do that as a man, that's another form of abusing my kids. It's going to hurt my kids way more than it would ever hurt her. And so that's really tough. I really, you know, it's a tough thing to talk about because I think it's important for guys to understand that. But I mean, I think in the whole dynamic of what I do, at some point, I do want to talk in detail about her actions, because a lot of women do it and they're real easy to counter if you haven't done anything wrong, which was my case. But also, like, the overall role of, like, let a parent be a parent. You have to. Like, it just hurts the kids so much to think, like, I mean, that, like how many disgruntled women or men brainwash their kids so that it's like, oh, your mom is this horrible person. What a crappy thing to have your kid think, you know. Also, you can feel better, and it makes sense when you're doing it, you know, when you're under duress parent, makes perfect sense, but it's not the right thing.
Yeah, she's going to be mom forever, right? Until they die. So
yeah,
no, I think that's great. The lessons from a parenting perspective is to show your kids that, you know, you won in court, right? You were assertive, but you didn't have to take it further, right? You didn't have to use vengeance or be aggressive at damaging or hurting your ex more, because you guys, to a degree, it's still a family, right? They still need their mom.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's a good lesson to teach your kids that, especially our boys, right? You have 4 sons. It's a great lesson to teach them that when you win or you're succeeding, you don't have to take it further, right? You can be assertive, you could stand up for yourself, but you don't have to keep pushing people down. You don't have to keep being aggressive and going after people to make yourself feel good, right? Your accomplishment is not based on hurting other people. It's about you surviving, you benefiting, and you becoming better. So I think there's a great lesson in there that you taught your boys, right? About, I guess, being humble or just accepting the best possible outcome without further hurting anyone else.
Yeah, and I hope I taught them well enough, because nobody's perfect. You know, it's very hard in those situations. I mean, Jesus, but you know, if you really take the black and white of it and you kind of bypass the gray area, it's like, no, man, I did the right things, you know, very much through that whole situation. And I would also say that you know, nobody cares, like everybody, I don't know. I mean, like with our pain or whatever, like we think other people care so much about it. And what people care most about is how you live. And what your kids are going to care most about is how you are, you know, like how you are with yourself and your virtues, like your ambition, your purpose, these things, those are the most important things, and not about your resentments and your anger and all that sort of stuff. It's just like watching this stinky thing in the corner grow, you know, like who wants to see that? But when we're in pain, you know, we think everybody wants to see that. So,
you know, what's interesting about that is when you're in that pain, that's the only part of you that you think exists. You know, like I said, for those guys sitting alone, like all they're focused on is that one aspect of their life. And it's interesting to me that people don't understand that who you are is more than your relationship status, you know, more than the titles that you have as an individual man existing on this rock, walking around upright. There's all of that is you. And, you know, I run the family alpha. So I kind of set myself up for failure if my family ever falls apart. The whole brand breaks. So people are like, well, what if you get divorced, man? I'll do something else, you know, and they can't comprehend that I love my family. I'm trying to keep it together the best I can. I love being a father. But as a man, that all this is extension of Zac. You know, so my health, my wealth, you know, understanding what's going on inside of me. It seems, you know, one of the lessons that's inside of your that story is that you knew what your aim was. You knew inside, or you had connection to someone that could help you get rid of the fog and then re-see what the aim was. Yeah. So for me, you know, it's living that good life, living authentically, getting after it. For those guys who are having a hard time this holiday season, maybe you can't go and see the person you want to see, but you can hit the gym, you can do the writing, you can study and learn more about yourself inside. There's other aspects of you that you do have control over. And you're like a very masculine Ryan Holiday when it comes to like stoicism. Like you're like the strong version of him, you know, and the message that's coming out is more fire. And it's more like, hey, like, here's the strongest way to go about controlling and focusing on what you can control. And again, I keep coming back to that because in the story, that's one of the bigger pandemics than the fake COVID, you know. It's people's loss of just a sense of personal responsibility, accountability, and control. People can control so much more than give themselves credit.
Well, we have, like, so just in general, like our world and our society is so much about not being responsible for shit. And like, man, it's just so fucked up. Like how we have an excuse. Yeah, it's terrible, man. To me, it's just such a disturbing thing. And like, so I don't have to be a good dad because my ex-wife or my soon-to-be ex or whatever she is, you know, the person I'm separated from is keeping them from me for Christmas. Like we as men, so to these guys that are in pain, like I get the pain and I don't want to minimize it. And you need to be angry. Like you could be angry. You can totally be angry. I'm not saying that you can't be. Like you could be pissed. You could be sad. You could be so sad. And like, you know, I've been clean for a while. Like I understand addiction. Like you could be drunk or on drugs and high and sulking and all those things make sense because I've lived it. But like right now, you need to start going like, I need to live differently. And there's people who know how to live differently that can help you live good. And so start working out. Like if you do have a substance abuse problem, like get some help with it. Like you can. It's very possible to be able to do that. Like you can start meditating. You can start a different way of life. You're going to have to lead your kids for the rest of your life. They're going to have a time where they break up with somebody and they're not going to know what to do. They're going to have a time when they don't get into the school they want to get into or whatever it is. Like they fail and it is unfair and it sucks. And you have to be able to show them. And I think for a father, it's so much different. You know, like as a father, we can be loving and caring. And I spend a lot of time with my kids, but I'm not a mom. I'm not the same as their moms. Their moms are like so good at that stuff. Like, what can I say, man? I don't have it in me. And I'm pretty good at being affectionate in those ways. Like I'm really close with them, but man, their moms are like amazing. Right. So what's the role then of the father? And it always comes back to like with my older kids, it's like, Dad, how do I do this? Or, you know, my 13-year-old son is ultra competitive. He's the best at everything. And I'm like, oh man, I know what that feels like. I also know what it feels like when you stop being the best and how crushing it is. And then it's like, all of a sudden you're crying. Why are you crying? Only weak people do that. Like, why am I, you know, and so you need to be there for your kids for that. And if you're drinking too much, if you're not staying healthy, like, and you don't have to be like Zac Small and have a ripped body and no, but you have to be healthy. You have to.
Body by Foster.
Got his pre-workout right here.
Oh shit. But like but you know, like if we're unhealthy, if we're sick, you know, and we can help that because we haven't changed our diets and we don't have to be perfect, right? You know, if our minds are clouded, like, God, man, like do your best to work on those things. You don't have to be perfect, right? But just get on that road and get around people that do that. Like, so I lead groups. I've led groups for a long time. I fail every single day. Every single day. There's guys in my groups that have been it for 3 months. And I'll be like, oh man, yeah, I wish I had your day. You know, you're doing much better than me right now. Like, because it's a daily action of what we need to do. And the longer we do it, the better our lives get. And like, we have to understand that as men, that's super important. So if you can't see your kids for the holidays, like that's terrible. But man, let's get to work. If you can see your kids for the holidays, let's get to work. Like, let's really like work on how we can be strong for the future because your kids need you. They're going to need, like, man, I'm 44 years old. My dad is still alive. You know, yeah. I want that to be the case for my kids, you know?
Yeah.
You know, we often say, go ahead.
I was going to say the cycle that we always talk about, you know, men, it's real simple to me hearing you speak about this, Steve, right? We need to take care of ourselves. We need to get away from the disconnect that we don't matter as men, right? We have to be willing to push through that pain that we need to spend some time and focus on improving ourselves. And what happens in the cycle is we are this way because we never learned from our father, right? He might have been a strong man. Mm-hmm. He might have been supporting his household, working hard. That was typically what they did the prior generation. But we never really had that emotional connection. We never had the mental clarity to grow up and say, hey, strong men take care of themselves, right? So to me, that's the disconnect. Now in 2022, 21, 22, we can start to have conversations as men and say, yeah, look, we need to be physically strong. We need to be mentally capable. We need to make sure we're providing our finances in order. And we have all these boxes we have to check. And none of it is to seek status or approval from others, but it's from building within. And once our kids see that, right, they're not going to be raised or brought up to think that they're insignificant, that they don't matter, that they need to sit by themselves in this pain and not get help. So it's cool to see, like speaking with you and a lot of the guests we've had on, you know, this network growing and men actually caring about helping children, but also from helping themselves, right? Saying that we need to build up from within, and that's going to be the greatest asset to our family.
Yeah. You know, I'd like to piggyback on that one too. You know, we talk a lot about, you know, our kids following our example and not our advice. And Steve, you know, Anthony's talking about the network. I'm going to throw it to you. You're telling your kids, yeah, surround yourself with people who can help you get to better. So you have MD Excellence and the Rising Man. Can we talk about how you're living this? And it's an example you're living and you're not just saying it. So what are these groups that you're running and how does that work?
Man, it's like, so I have 30 hours of calls a week with
I saw that lineup, man. It's impressive.
Yeah, so it's a lot. Like I do it, man. I mean, I think the last 3 years of my life have been man, one of my favorite things is when I have pain. Pain is one of the greatest fuels that you can have, because it allows you to find things that you can't always get. Like inspiration is great, but desperation like really does a lot. And so when I was like, all right, this is happening, I am getting divorced. Like, and by the way, Zac, I loved what you said about like the family alpha. Oh, the brand goes away. Like, but yeah, but why would you not be the family alpha? Like, why does it be like the family alpha with a clause? Like, really, come on, man. Like if shit happens, shit happens. But like, I am what I am now, 100%. And so like, when that happened to me, I was like, oh geez, like, you know, this is happening. Okay. And like in that moment, and this is not an easy moment. It's not like a switch went off and I'm like, yeah, I'm good. But in that moment, it's like, okay, this is happening. I'm going to make sure that anything that is fucked up about me, that is my part in this, is going to be found and like solved and whatever. And I don't know if I've done that, but I've damn sure tried. So I've always lived this in the 15 or so years or whatever I've been teaching and working with people. Like I've always lived it. I've always lived it. Like I went through getting clean, you know, starting the business, like right, you know, when I started it is like right when I got clean the last time. And, you know, I lived it, you know, I did that. You know, the reason why I have a community-based system is because like, that's how I got clean, was in a community-based system. And so I just modeled my program after that. We had a lot of calls. We started the calls in 2009. You know, we've never missed a call for that entire time, or we've never had a week without calls that entire time. And, you know, we just grew and grew and grew. And so we started out with something called TSL Online, which still exists, which I don't really advertise as much, but it's like an upper tier thing. And then Men's Development Excellence was like the lower tier thing. Then that built up and that became like a really rich, like dynamic program. And so there's just a lot of calls with that, you know, where guys get to work on stuff, whether it's, you know, on their dating life, their sex life, their perspective, their career, you know, if they want to go into their different shadow work or whatever sort of stuff, their goals. There's like 20 different courses that they can take on kind of any topic that you can imagine when it comes to like men's development. There's fitness, health, perspective, purpose, mind, body, yada, yada, yada. That's all within there that I've just built out over the years. Now, then it was like, well, now Men's Development Excellence is more expensive. So we need another thing that's more simple for people to go into. And that's where the Rising Man went into. And the Rising Man is basically, there's two entry points. You can be a really young man and you want to figure out how to set up your life. And there's those things. And then there's divorced guys. You're going through divorce or you've been divorced and you haven't fully recovered, go here. And there's just no bullshit. Like, dude, I am not like, you're going to be like killing it and fucking all these chicks and, you know, making millions of dollars. No, you're going to be living a good life. You're going to be living a good life you can be proud of. That's all I care about. I want you to make the money that you deserve. I want you to have the relationships you deserve, but I want that to be built and done by a man who can fuel that. Like, why would I want you to be a man that has relationships that you can just get but don't deserve, or have a career that, you know, just says you're cool, but you don't actually live that, you know? So I really,
this is why I like you, Steve. This is why I like you, man. Like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, but that's my fucking life, man. Like that's it. Like, all the way from the 21 convention, like, to, because, you know, like I'd spoken there. I left in 2016 when it got really political. And then, you know, it's just like I'd bring up these coaches that just clearly didn't live what they lived. And I was just like, no, man, that's all I care about. That's all I care about. Why would I care about anything else? Like, what, you know, anyway, it's just like people obsessed with the image, people obsessed with, you know, what other people think of them. Like, man, fuck that. Like, because really, you know, that's fatherhood. Fuck that. My kids don't give a shit.
Are you saying you're not going to help me get fast money and easy women? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I don't think you want that, but you know. No, I'm not so good at those things. So, you know, but no, man, you know, I really think it's important that guys learn the value in, we live in a society, we live in a man's world still, you know, like anybody who thinks you don't know where to look. And there's people showing you, and I get there's a whole bunch of like megaphone bullshit, which is telling you to be weak, or that's selling you the wrong thing on being hyper alpha or whatever stuff. But like, we live in a man's world. You can live however you want. But it's dependent upon you living it and not an image of you living it. And that's like really what's important.
Yeah. No, I see two different sides of the world. I see mostly you have men who are disconnected from their mother and they're outraged and hate women and want to hurt women. And then you see women who are disconnected from their fathers and they hate males and they want to embrace feminism. So that's the majority of what I see, especially that's shown to us right through the news and media. But like what me and Zac say all the time, right? You come to my house and my kids, like my two daughters, they're older now. They don't see men as bad, right? They see men by the example that I've led, right? They want to go out and they want to meet a nice man. They know certain qualities they need to look for. And the same thing with my son, seeing, you know, being raised in our home and having his mother as a model to show what it's supposed to look like. And I think the more that we can promote that, right, make being a family man cool, you're going to see these little systems fall apart, right? The systems that are trying to divide everybody. And really what they're doing is it's not even division. They're hurting. They're playing on their weakness and their pain. Yep. You know, you talk about addiction. Fear. Yeah, you talk about addiction. Probably 99% of addiction is just from pain that they're not dealing with, right? Totally. It's not what drug we're using. It's why are they using the drugs? What are they trying to hide? So I'm gonna keep promoting it. And I know Zac's running with me, but you know, the family man and just improving the family environment. That's crucial.
Yeah. No, man, and you're right about it. Like, these things are going to fall apart just because they can't last, but they're really annoying and they're delaying a ton of people. You know, it's terrible. Yeah.
So Steve, for guys that are looking to work with you, the guys that are looking to connect and they want to touch base, or they're interested in your live group or one of your online groups, you know, and that's the beauty of this. With the online group, you've removed the need for physical proximity. So if you're the one dude who's struggling and you're surrounded by a bunch of people who don't care and they're looking to do nothing, you want to do better, you're not stuck in that neighborhood anymore. You can now connect with men from across the globe. Yeah. So if maybe men in that situation, they want to reach out, what's the best way for them to connect and then see what you have to offer them?
Yeah. So, you know what I would say is, if you like what you see, do two things and go on like Instagram. It's at Steve Mayeda, and you can follow me there. And in that, if you like some of the videos or things that you read or whatever, those sorts of things, you can look at the link tree and you could look at Men's Development Excellence of the Rising Man. The Rising Man is real simple. You know, it's like $35 at the time that we're recording this to to get in your membership or to start it out at, and you see if you like it. See if you like it, because the other thing too is I just cleared out my groups big time. It was so good. And now every single guy in my group, I know so well. They're all working. I know exactly their issues, and I can speak to them. That's just so cool. So that's what I want, and that's what the group wants. We don't want somebody that just pays $35 and disappears. We want somebody that pays $35 and goes man, okay, I like this. I like this. This is something that I want to do more of. This is something that, I really care about in my life. And that's what we care about. So check out, what's on Instagram, or you can find me on Facebook there. And, you can usually find links everywhere of where the different advertisements are for the courses and so on. And then if you like it, yeah, sign up, and we'll talk on the phone a lot, because we do a lot of calls.
That's awesome, man. I want to thank you for your time and your insights, opening up and letting these guys see the real picture. And that's why we wanted you on. It's real, and I can vouch for that. And there's not every guest can I put my reputation line no, that guy's legit. For you, I can. We've had the discussions, we've had the talks. It's when I sat down, dude, and we were talking about it. I remember I was 333 days sober, and we were talking. We connected on that, and then it went to family, and then it went to men's groups. So I was like, dude, you're speaking my language, man. So it was a really cool thing. And
That's
Anthony, you ran this one like a champ, brother. This was a great freaking podcast. Appreciate your time. Another episode on Oak and Rock Fatherhood. Thank you all who tuned in. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and all of that. But more than anything, make sure you apply the lessons you learned here. If you don't apply the information, nothing changes. So I'm glad you watched. I'm glad you listened. But now go out and do the work. And when you have questions, come back. All three of us will answer them. You guys take care.